Welcome to the Credit Union Sales and Marketing Podcast. Your hosts, Bill McKenna, Paul Robert, and special guests discuss ideas for creating alignment in your sales and marketing efforts and ways to accelerate growth. Now let's get started.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Credit Union Sales and Marketing Podcast. I'm your co-host, Bill McKenna, and with me is my partner in crime, Paul Robert. Say hello, Paul Robert.
Hello, Paul Robert. How are you, Bill? Good to see you.
Perfect.
I follow instructions. What can I say?
Yeah, you did a good job there. You did a great job. It's great. It's great to see you again, as always.
You
too. Today, I thought maybe what we do is talk about the two types of marketing. And people are going, what are the two types of marketing? Well, that's what we're going to talk about right now. So I look at it recently in a session I presented. I kind of started off with this. I was laying some groundwork so people understood what are the two different types of marketing and how do you approach those? So the first type of marketing is really what I call product and service marketing. We want more checking accounts. We want more loans. We want more certificates. Whatever we want, that's our product or service. The second type of marketing, or where we spend our money, really has to do with what I call brand magnification. So that's brand marketing. And sometimes you'll see that, in a billboard that's just kind of crazy, someone flying through the air and we soar in the name of a credit union or a bank or something crazy. And that's more brand magnification. And that happens in lots of different ways. So, Paul, today I thought we teed up. We talk about these two different things, and then again from a sales and a culture and a brand standpoint, and then from more of a direct marketing approach. Make sense?
Oh, totally. And from a sales and culture standpoint, Bill, what we're doing in regards to either product or brand should dictate what we do from a sales and culture standpoint. And so, on the surface, people might be saying, well, that's, marketing 101. There's product and there's brand magnification. But deciding which is it going to be and where's the scale in regards to balancing those two, that's going to dictate the culture that we create and the sales approach that we take in order to be ultimately successful. So, I love doing 101 things because my simple brain can relate to that. And but this one, I think, really can be magnified into a really good discussion around strategy and what do we need to do to be successful.
I totally agree with that. So when we talk about product marketing, we're typically looking at benefits or even rates or fees or terms, things that people might find, they have a better rate or they have a longer term or that one's more flexible. But people don't necessarily choose you just on rates and fees. As a matter of fact, that they are, that's not good. They also combine their experience, their previous brand experience with you. It's in their perception, what they've seen in the past. They've built this whole brand guideline. And so we really look at, when you talk about brand benefits, why do we want to have, let's talk about that for a second, Paul. Why do we want to have a better brand? How does that affect the influence of people choosing us for a product or service? Why is a brand important?
Well, and I think today, probably more so than ever, Bill, people are making buying decisions based on the brand, based on, can I make an emotional connection to this brand? And that's where we really moved away from the product and service, although there's still a place for that. So we need to come back to that eventually in this conversation. But we've kind of moved away from just product and service and really trying to make a connection with members and prospective members at an emotional, at a personal level. And I think that's a classic example of, how we need to approach those opportunities differently. How do we sell to those people? How do we, what type of employees do we need in order to execute that type of strategy? It's different than if we have a product focused strategy. So I think it's really, how do we make that connection? How does our brand make a connection at an emotional level? That has to be our focus going forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's talk for a second about some brand benefits. I'm just thinking through here.
Yeah.
If we have a stronger brand, we have better member loyalty. We build
Right.
loyalty through that brand because they like us. They appreciate what we're doing. They're going to use more of our services if we have a better brand naturally, as you just talked about, because they're going to be more driven to use us compared to someone else, or why they choose us. We have greater profitability, right? A better brand's going to give us better profitability because they're going to use more of our services. We have a competitive advantage because we're different than our competitors. Why do we stand out? Well, that's going to be partly because of our brand, not just our rates and fees. And then we create brand advocates, right? People get excited about doing business with us and they share that with. These are just a few of the benefits of having a brand. Would you agree?
Yeah, one thing that, and it probably falls into your first category, which was loyalty, but I like to use, and I'm trying to train myself to use it all the time, the term resistance. And that's resistance to leave, or resistance to the temptation to leave. And again, this kind of gets back to the product side of it, Bill, but consumers are bombarded every day with other financial institutions trying to lure them away, right? And so we have to have created an environment with our members where they're resistant to that, where they say, well, no, it's nice that they do that, but I love my credit union and there's no way that I'm leaving them. Or, hey, that's interesting that other company does that. I'm going to pick up the phone and call Bill at my local credit union and see if they can do that for me too. That's the type of culture or environment or relationship that we want to build with our members, where they're resistant to the temptation to go somewhere else. And that's just been, that whole part of our business has just exploded in the last 5 or 10 years for sure. It used to be the guy down the street was our competition. Now we don't even think about the guy down the street because there's so many other competitors that we do have to think about.
Yeah, I think we're talking about removing obstacles to growth or for people leaving, right? So people leave, they're less likely to leave if you have a brand that they're really passionate about and you've done things. I believe that there's a lot of those, so jumping into another thought here. And I love when we get together and talk about this stuff, because my brain, if people could see smoke coming out of my head, if they're actually watching this, because I start thinking about how all this connects, right? It's like, and that's the hard part. It's like you got to connect all of this. You got to make this actually actionable. You got to have a plan written out, and you got to know how we're going to approach this. This doesn't just happen. Creating a great brand just doesn't all of a sudden happen. That's why so many credit unions are changing names, or looking at name changes, or upgrading their brand, their look, their feel, discussing a new slogan or a call to action, because this doesn't just happen. This is something you got to work at. And Paul, I know that's what you do every day, is work inside with the team. And that's what I do every day on my side of the business, is I create marketing action plans to make these things happen and how we execute them.
Yeah, and I would say, Bill, at the heart of all of that, or maybe the origin of all of that, is what do we want to be in the future? What do we want to be? Not what are we today, not what have we been in the past, okay? What do we want to be when we grow up? And I use that reference because we need to continue to grow. We recently did an episode, Bill, just on growth, and this is another example of that. We have to continue to grow if we're going to, survive and thrive into the future. And so I think at the core of this complexity that you're talking about is answering the question, what do we want to be when we grow up? and then everything funnels towards that. Everything is in that perspective as we move forward, from a sales standpoint, from a culture standpoint, from a marketing, branding, even product standpoint. Everything pivots off of what do we want to be when we grow up.
Yeah, and just for those that did get a chance to hear that session on growth, we talked about attracting new members. We talked about retaining the ones we have, not letting them go out the back door. And we also talked about deepening the relationships we have with them. So that's what we're doing here. We're talking about all those. So let me bring up another point that's really related is I believe that most people join a credit union for a product or service. But ultimately, when you think about it, right, they come in for a product. They don't just typically walk in the door and say, I love you guys so much, I'm just going to join. Even if you're doing great brand things, they come in because, you know what, I actually need a car loan.
Right.
Or I actually want to open a credit card because I've seen what you're doing and I want to do it with you rather than the 85 offers I get in the mail every week from a million credit card companies.
So let me put a different spin on that, Bill. I think people join the credit union because they have a need. Now, I agree with you that need is oftentimes for a product.
Yes.
But you and I have talked a lot, both in presentations, and I think we did a podcast on this, maybe not, if not we should, on life events and how, it's those triggers, those life event triggers that force somebody to say, hey, I need a financial institution to help me do X. So I think that's a fine tuning of your number one, which is the the product and service. And, we've got to have those products and services in order to even be at the table with this member.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, I stand corrected. When I say product or service, you can get a product or service any place. But you're right, it's the need. Why would they choose you? How is your offer for product service going to help their life better? Because they have a need, whether it's to have a better credit card that they pay less money for or that they use it for whatever they're doing. So I agree, and I stand corrected because you are absolutely right on that. So, but the second part is critical. I believe that people that they join for a product or service based on their need. But then the second part is they really change financial institutions usually only during a lifestyle trigger of some sort.
Right.
Or even when I say change finance, it may not be the total PFI relationship. That's what we want. We want deeper relationships. We all strive for that. But there's nothing wrong with having a member that does a bunch of things with you, even if it's not PFI, right? We still, if they're doing auto loan with us and an equity loan with us and they have a credit card with us and they're bringing deposits, that's fine. I mean, I want their checking account. I want their debit card. I want their direct deposit. We all want that. That's harder. And even those people, most cases, will not change or go through the work unless there's been a trigger of some sort of lifestyle. What are those triggers, Paul? What kinds of things do you talk about with teams when you work with them?
Well, I mean, first of all, before I answer that directly, it's not just, and this is what we work with employees, credit union employees about, it's not just the life event that's occurring now. It's anticipating and preparing for the next life event and positioning your credit union, both, Bill, from a brand and marketing standpoint, but also from a product and delivery standpoint for the member making a decision at that next life event. And that goes back to my reference earlier about resisting the temptation, because as that life event approaches, they're going to start thinking, well, where do I need to go to get the product I need to help with that life event? And, well, we want them to think of you and you only when it comes to that. So, let's go back to your original question. You've got things starting as early as graduation, right? Graduating from college. You've got marriage. You've got kids. You've got job change. You've got home purchase. And then I would say as kind of a subset of home purchase, you could have moving out of town, and I guess that could be part of job too. You're moving out of town to your next home is going to be somewhere else. Retirement is certainly. Death is a life event, ironically, to say it that way. But, I think, and then there are others that you can kind of plug in some of the gaps. But the key is to think about this transition from one stage, one phase to the next. Some of them happen pretty quickly. Others, you got a little bit of time in between. But what do we need to do from a marketing and branding standpoint, and then from a sales standpoint, to anticipate that next one and then help our members make decisions at each one of those? That's where we have to really design our marketing and sales initiatives around those life events.
Yeah, and it makes me think back to the original, what we talked about is the brand differentiation and what makes us different, the branding part. Well,
Right.
them choosing us for that product or service could be a result of something they've seen in the past that we've done. Maybe they attended a community event we were part of and they saw our name, or there was a concert they went to and our name was on the stage, or there was a cancer walk that they
Right.
went to that was sponsored by our credit union, right? Those are all
Right.
things that you're not necessarily going to see a direct impact of, well, we got new auto loans from that cancer walk.
Yeah.
But there's someone whose parent or spouse has cancer and it's affected their lives and you've tugged at their heartstrings because of
Yeah.
what you've done as a brand. That is the thing that makes them choose you many times over just another supplier of a product or service, right?
Here's just a quick shout out to our sponsor, ironistic.com. Hey, in today's world, everyone knows the importance of having a great website and having an integrated digital marketing plan. If your credit union, community bank, or any other company is looking for that help, I can highly recommend ironistic.com. Check them out.
Yeah, and so now you're getting to something that we talk a lot about in our sales training, which is storytelling. And, Bill, you just gave some perfect examples of we can do all of those community events. The cancer walk is the one that really resonated with me. We can do all of those things and we can hope that people see that and hear that and get moved by that, or we can kind of take it to the next level and kind of manage that. And if our frontline people in their interactions with members are saying, hey, did you hear about our involvement in that cancer walk? And God, I was part of that and it was a life-changing experience for me. That may not really drive that member at that very moment to move their accounts to you or get their next loan with you, but I guarantee it, you've planted a seed in their mind and in their heart, and when they come to that next life event, they're going to remember that and they're going to think about you because of you did the cancer walk, you sponsored it, your employees were active in it, etc. And then B, you made them aware of it. You talked about it. And that's not bragging, that's just branding. And that's just talking about who we are and being proud, frankly, of who we are and what we're doing in the community. So it's great for the brand, but we can really, really take it to the next level if we also bake that into our sales efforts.
Agreed. 100% what you said, because I happen to believe there's something called underpriced and overpriced attention. And underpriced attention are many times the things like email. For instance, email is underpriced because it's a great way. It's the only marketing you really can own. You can own an email list. But one of the things I recently spoke about was public relations. Because, so many people do these events and they do nothing with public relations.
Exactly.
They don't send out a press release about the event prior to and after, because publications in their area pick those up and they storytell, just like you said. It's all about that. And social media, same thing. Use that social media. Get the
Totally.
stuff out, before, after, during the event. Spend the time. Don't just be at the event, but spend the time. You're not bragging, you're sharing, because that's building brand, and that's going to ultimately lead to that person that says, I'm going to get my auto loan from them. I've seen them. They do
Yeah.
good things. I
Yes.
want to be
Yes.
part of that.
Yeah.
I want to be part of that. I don't want to be part of the big bank down the street. I don't know them. They don't do anything for me.
Yeah. So now let me put a different, not a different spin. That was the wrong way of saying it. Let me add on to that idea, Bill, that you and I are laying out here. That takes a different employee as well. So it used to be, certainly back when I was, making these decisions, it used to be we wanted employees who, they knew their products, and they kind of were focused on the operations. And if they had people skills, awesome. That was the trifecta, right? They could do those three things. Well, with what you and I just laid out, we got to have employees that love to be involved in that cancer walk and aren't hesitant to talk about that cancer walk, and genuinely and almost naturally are able to relate that to the member that they're talking to, or the prospective member, as the case may be. And they can speak from their heart. It's not a scripted thing that we've given them. They can genuinely express why they're proud to work at our credit union, and why they love our mission, vision, and values, and love the fact that we're so active in the community. That really, Bill, at the end of the day, that really does require a different type of player in order to be successful and to be optimally effective.
Yeah, and those employees, it isn't about paying them more. It isn't about, everyone likes to get paid well, but it's really about engagement and them being passionate about wanting to work for you. And
Yeah.
it is hard today because people are busy. They have busy lives.
They do,
and another weekend or another evening away from the family that they have to go somewhere or be part of an event. You have to have an organization that people are excited to be part of. And when you have that, your employees will resonate that brand. They will be examples of that brand. We've talked about it many times. It's just amazing because, again, it doesn't just happen. It's something you have to build. You have to build employees that are just passionate.
It's a crossroads, Bill, that a lot of, I know, I've just within the last month, I've facilitated 2 conversations that I can think of with credit unions that are at a crossroads, and they really have to make a hard decision about, do we have the right people to deliver on this culture that we're trying to create, on this vision for what do we want to be when we grow up, okay? And it's the realization that the employees that got us here may not be the employees that get us to where we need to go. And I know that's hard. But, it's business, and we have to make hard decisions sometimes, and we have to make business decisions sometimes. And if it's the right decision to make, well, then the sooner we make it, the sooner we're going to be able to realize that vision for ourselves down the road.
And you remember we had a great guest in Jason Causa from Reviews Up, who we both happen to work with and recommend for online reviews. But you remember we talked about online reviews, which is, again, a great way to build brand and customer satisfaction. We also talked about the importance of employee reviews, because those employee reviews, when someone goes to Indeed or somewhere in LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and they look, why do I want to work for this organization, this credit union? Those reviews are so important. If you have a bunch of people saying, this ain't a great place to work, it's terrible, it's not a good, that's it. But when you have a lot of people that are showing how much they love to work for you because you care about them and you care about the community and the members you serve, that attracts better people.
Totally.
And again, it's hard work to build that, but it's worth the effort because it can be a game changer in people choosing you.
I'm so glad you brought up Jason and Reviews Up, because I was going to interject earlier when you were talking, Bill, that social media makes what we're talking about, the bragging, if you will, about us. It just magnifies that. I remember back when I was a banker, yeah, we would send out a press release, but that the local media outlets had a stack of press releases this high that they had to weed through, right? Well, you don't have to worry about that with social media anymore, and Reviews Up is the perfect example. People have so many places to go to find out, what is it about this credit union, or how good is this credit union, or what do they stand for, or how involved are they in the community, or does their mission align with my mission or my values, and so forth. So yeah, that's a great resource. And with social media, we have to be, and jump in here, Mr. Marketer, we have to be really active in managing our presence on social media, not just from a negative standpoint, but more so, I think, from a positive standpoint, in capitalizing on the opportunities to really talk about who we are and why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, working closely with Jason, I love the product, and I think it's one of the most overlooked things with online reviews. And some of the stats that are amazing: 86% of consumers read reviews, right? And they tell you that 57% are unlikely to do business with a company that has less than a 4-star average. We all look at that. So these things are all interconnected. Trying to wrap this up, we started off talking about the two different types of marketing: product and service marketing. We all want more use of our products and services. It's going to drive our earnings, everything about it, right? We need more people to use our services, more people to come in. And then there's the brand piece. It's the brand amplification that we talk about.
Right.
They're interconnected. It isn't
Totally.
one without the other. But I don't think, again, enough people have put the time into understanding how to make that work. And with digital marketing, as you shared, social media, online reviews, there's so many ways we can really amplify our messages and get more people to use us. But we have to have a clear plan of action.
So, Mrs. or Mr. Credit Union executive that's out there watching or listening to this, think about everything that we've talked about here today as one unified approach. And it's so easy to think about marketing and branding and sales and service and culture almost independently, when if we think about them as one synthesized entity and the real core of our strategy going forward, Bill, that's where the amplification comes in, right? That's where it becomes magnified to a point where we're going to really be successful. We're going to really thrive as we move into the future.
Yeah, definitely. Another good conversation.
All right, sir.
Boy, I feel like we could just go on forever because there's so many things to talk about here.
And I still see smoke coming out of your ears, but I know that that's good fuel for the next podcast that we do.
Most definitely. And I was just thinking as I was sitting here, I made a couple notes actually about some other guests I'd like to have on. I'd like to get some people on to talk a little bit more about public relations, because I think that's a real big miss for a lot of credit unions. We probably could get someone here shortly to also talk about employee reviews and culture and how we build that details. So it just opens the doors to a lot of and by the way, if you happen to be listening to this podcast and you think of a cool topic that you'd like to go, you could go to our website, which is obviously cusalesandmarketing.com. And if you go there and you have a comment you'd like to make, or reach out to Paul. Paul and I are both available on LinkedIn. And of course, I'm Bill McKenna, and my email is billm@mckennanetwork.com. Again, billm@mckennanetwork.com. And Paul, what's your email address if people want to reach you?
probert@fi-strategies.com.
Great.
So
and
send us topics, Bill, and then also send us if you know of somebody who is particularly good in what we're talking about, maybe it's the CMO at your credit union, we'd love to talk to them. Or maybe it's a service provider that you work with that you think has a unique perspective on this, we'd love to talk to them as well.
Absolutely. We're always looking for great guests. Thanks, Paul, for your time today. We'll talk again on the next episode of the Credit Union Sales and Marketing Podcast.
Adios, Bill.
See ya.